Welcome to Equal Entertainment. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. Reaction is coming in from all across Hollywood after the death of Friends actor Matthew Perry. Perry was found dead in a hot tub at his home in Los Angeles. The medical examiner says his death will require additional investigation as they wait for toxicology results to come in. The Advocate Channel's Camila Bernal has more on Perry's life, career, and his desire to help others through his own struggles.
Shock and sadness. That has been the reaction from Hollywood and from fans to the death of Matthew Perry. Police here in Los Angeles say that they're investigating his death, and this is according to a law enforcement source that spoke to CNN. They responded to his home at 4:10 p.m. local time on Saturday, and the Los Angeles Fire Department also telling CNN that the 911 call came in at 4:07 p.m. for a water rescue emergency. The Los Angeles Times is reporting that he died in an apparent drowning accident at his home here in LA, and they cited a law enforcement source saying that no foul play is suspected. Now, we are, of course, waiting for more details on what happened. But let's talk about him. We know he developed a love for acting in his teenage years. He started with smaller roles and eventually landed higher profile roles, but it was being cast as the very funny and sarcastic Chandler on Friends that made him so famous. Off screen, the actors became as close as their characters on the show, and they famously negotiated together to become some of the highest paid actors on television at the time. Now, despite the joy he did bring to audiences on camera, he said he struggled with addiction and eventually was able to share those struggles with his fans in his book. And he said he wanted to share those struggles, not just in his books, but in many interviews, because he wanted to help people. Camila Bernal, CNN, Los Angeles.
We are remembering the life of another giant on screen. Actor Richard Mall has died. Mall was best known for his role as Bull the Bailiff on the original sitcom Night Court from 1984 until 1992. The 6'8" tall actor also appeared in Jingle All the Way and Scary Movie 2. And he was the voice of Two-Face in the DC animated series Batman. Richard Mall was 80 years old. Actor Jonathan Majors' latest movie has been pulled from Disney's release calendar ahead of his assault trial. The movie Magazine Dreams was originally set for release on December 8th. Disney is now indicating the film no longer has a release date. Majors was charged with assault and aggravated harassment from a March 25th incident involving his former girlfriend, Grace Jabari. The actor denies the allegations and filed a counterclaim against Jabari. Major's trial is expected to begin on November 29th. Call it a nomance. Researchers are now saying that Gen Z wants to see fewer sex scenes on screen. A new study from UCLA found the group thinks romance is overused in TV shows and movies. They prefer to see platonic friendships on screen. A 16-year-old research participant says the romance depiction, quote, can give people false ideas of what they should be wanting at that age. The study says Gen Z prefers wholesome entertainment with positive character relationships. Queer relationships in novels have been subverted for far too long, but a new book by the acclaimed author of Room, Emma Donoghue, is giving life to historical figure Anne Lister's first same-sex love. The exquisitely researched historical fiction novel is learned by heart. Hi, welcome, author Emma Donoghue of Room and now Learned by Heart. Thank you for being here with me.
My pleasure.
Yes, well, I would love to begin by talking about Learned by Heart. And I know that you touch on this in the afterword for your book, but I wonder if you would share with us your first kind of memories of Anne Lister in your consciousness.
Sure. I encountered Anne Lister at, I think, 20. I was literally getting out of the rain in a bookshop and came across the first Farrago Press collection of excerpts from this Yorkshire woman's secret coded diary. And that was published in 1998, I Know My Own Heart by Helena Whitbread. And that book changed my life. So I wrote my first play as a very free adaptation of that book. And I've been obsessed with Lister ever since, like all her lovers were. You know, I'm like some cast off lover of hers who can't quite forget her. So now I have finally, more than 3 decades on, got around to writing a book about Lister's adolescence, before the diary, before it all began. And in particular, the beautiful Eliza Rain, who she fell in love with at boarding school at
Yeah.
the age of 14.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, and I want to get to that. I do want to kind of ask you a little bit about this. This is a work of fiction, however, it is heavily researched, and much of it is born out of journals and accounts and facts. And would you talk a bit about this kind of fictional novel that is so based in research and what that was like for you?
Sure, I love doing this kind of very accurate historical fiction, and I love it in particular when I'm writing about, obscure lives. And Anne Lister, it's funny, she's a bit of a pop culture, icon these days because of the wonderful Sally Wainwright HBO series Gentleman Jack. But still, the actual texts on which all this relies, a lot of them are not published yet. And the amazing thing is that in the case of Anne Lister and her dozen lovers, basically in early 19th century Yorkshire, the fandom has actually become a contributor to getting those archives and bringing them into the light. So the fans don't just sit around waiting for cultural products. And the fans, hundreds of them, have signed up as code breakers and have actually transcribed the entire 5 million word diary. There were letters I needed to write this book, letters from Anne Lister's adolescence to and from Eliza Rain. I couldn't read them. They were in Yorkshire. This was COVID, and 14 volunteers transcribed them for me. So this is in some ways a crowdsourced novel, not the writing, but the research. It's an astonishing community.
That is so wonderful. And would you talk a bit about the structure of the novel where you have letters from Eliza Rain to Lister when she's in her early to mid 20s, and then that frames this kind of flashback, as it were, to 1805, 1806 when they were at school together?
Sure. When you're trying to do a biographical novel, you always have to decide, which bit or bits to show, because you don't want to just trawl through it and have that kind of, oh, what happened the next year, sort of, pedestrian pace.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted this to be about the year the two girls fell in love. Anne Lister and Eliza Rain were put in an attic room together at their small boarding school. And while it might seem to be luxurious to only have two people in your room, the fact that they were the very androgynous, troublesome tomboy and the biracial girl from India, I think they were very much being stashed in an attic room. So I had to focus the novel on that year, but I wanted to be honest about the fact that their lives went in totally different directions. And by their mid-20s, Lister was living more and more happily in that she was having wonderful affairs with women, she was traveling, she was inheriting land, and Eliza was in an asylum. So without making the whole book a downer, I wanted to be really true to that. And so to counterpoint the tragic parts of Eliza Rain's story with the glorious falling in love part.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And as you mentioned, Lister has become a bit of a pop culture icon, certainly for lesbians, and with Gentleman Jack, and we get to see her affair with Anne Walker there, and then the Secret Diaries of Miss Anne Lister, the BBC film from I guess 20 years ago now at least, and that's with Mariana Belcombe, and now you have this portrait of Eliza Rain, and it does a wonderful job of kind of touching on the colonialism of the era. And would you talk a bit about researching that and why it was important to you to shine a light on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, in the 3 decades I've been waiting to write this novel, Eliza Rain has really moved into focus because we're more and more interested in the fact that the past was not, white. Our image of the past from period drama with all those white faces, it just wasn't like that. So a figure like Eliza Rain represents so many people who were part of the British Empire. She had a British father, an Indian mother, and she was so cut off from her Indian side because her father, like many of these British men working for the East India Company, he sent her and her sister home, and she never saw her mother again. He like Englished her. He just sent her off to boarding school at the age of 6. So I didn't find many specific facts about Eliza Rain's childhood, but there were hundreds and hundreds like her who were the children of these East India Company British men. And so I was able to research them as a whole cohort. And many of them were, say, not told who their real parents were, or they were sent off to England and they were miserable, or in some cases they were sent off to England and lovingly accepted by relatives there. So there was a really wide range of experiences.
You can watch the Advocate channel live by downloading our app in the Apple or Google Play Store. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and thank you for watching.